Rusty on the intro there. Um, so I want to welcome you guys back to another episode. We have a full pack show today. It's going to be amazing. We're going to talk about some current events, actually some tragic events, and some, infighting. And we have a list of things where we're going to talk about that we're really going to dive deep into, seeing that we haven't been here in 2 weeks. Um, I'm not going to say much. We're going to give it to Seth to do his quick intro, and then we're going to dive deep into the issues.
Yeah, it's not like we're going to be able to cover everything that happened. I feel like we need to talk about the Israel-Palestine conflict, which I think we'll talk about the history of the conflict pretty much right off the bat, and then we'll get into like more of the U.S. centered politics, like Republican infighting, the speakership, stuff like that. So I think we'll get right into the history of Palestine.
Yeah.
How this whole thing got into this situation. Well, just go right into it. The whole reasoning behind Israel existing is because of, the historical connection between the Jewish people in the state of Israel, or at least the Jerusalem. But this has been a very contested ethnic claim, religious claim, because Muslims also have a staple to their religion that Jerusalem is really integral to the foundation of their religion, and so does Christianity. This is where the Crusades came from. The Crusades was like a major conflict between Europeans and Muslims fighting over Israel, fighting over Jerusalem. This is a centuries-long conflict, and it's not surprising that it's still going on because it's tied to religion. And when things are tied to religion, everything gets personal. Everybody gets, oh, these are the infidels. These are the ones that are against God or something. And everybody can pin all evil things on the other group when in reality, the Old Testament is in Judaism, it's in Christianity, it's in Islam. So they all have a tie because they're all like referencing the same book. You know what I mean? They all are kind of the same exact religion with slightly different cultural variants. And this is just enough difference for them to try to kill each other. I mean, we can see in Islam, even Sunni and Shia Muslims, same religion, minor differences, and they have this like centuries-long conflict between these two religious sects of the same religion. So, I don't know. Jewish people have been out of Israel for hundreds of years, for the most part, and in early 1900s, Israel and Palestine both did not exist. This was occupied by the Ottoman Empire.
Yeah.
And it's just occupied by Arabs, people living in the Palestinian territory. And until World War I, when the British were fighting, the Ottoman Empire in World War I, they overtook the Palestinian territory, and then they administered the area. They had a whole, I think, what was it? Something, the Sinai, Palestinian, I don't know. They were starting to introduce Jewish people to occupy.
Yeah, it was the Zionist movement.
Yeah, in the early 1900s, before World War II had happened.
Mm-hmm.
World War II hits, there's a genocide against Jewish people all across Europe, and Muslim radicals have had the same views against Jewish people as well. So they're from left to right, they're under threat from all these countries that want to kill Jewish people.
Yeah.
So, rational people think, hey, maybe we should just give them their own country and they don't have to live as a minority population in all these different countries in which they're at risk. So a little bit understandable that, we'll give them their homeland, their ethnic homeland in Israel. Let's create an Israeli state. But there's already people living in Palestine. That's the thing. Yeah. And in the 1947, that's when this whole state of Israel began. I think something like 70,000 Palestinians are rushed out of their homes. Like people, they had to flee the land, and it's kind of been a conflict ever since. The borders have shrunk between that time. There used to be a big, much bigger divide between Israel and Palestine. Palestine used to occupy a majority of the Palestinian territory, and slowly over time, it has shrunk to the point where there's almost no Palestinian territory left. They have the West Bank and they have the Gaza Strip. And even the West Bank has shrunk into a much smaller territory. So from both sides, they view this as their ethnic land, and the other one is the population that doesn't belong there. So there's been a lot more institutional support behind Israel, especially in the United States. We have been a big ally of them. They're a liberal democracy. They have markets and capitalism and the Judeo-Christian values. So it's not a surprise that the Republican Party and a lot of them have been sending a lot of military funds and aid to Israel, trying to protect them from countries like Iran, countries like Jordan, countries that do want to take back Israel from the Jewish people.
Yeah.
Now, since this has happened, Israel's pushed back a lot, and Palestinians have pushed back against Israelis, and the conditions that the Israeli people have put certain Palestinian populations in has created militant terrorist organizations like Hamas. It's the same situation as in other Middle Eastern countries, like with ISIS, with the Taliban, like with Al Qaeda. These groups are formed out of the presumption of a foreign occupying force. It's like, oh, we are being occupied by a foreign country. We need to defend ourselves. This is our ethnic land. It's very easy to recruit young men into these radical ideologies, especially tying it to religion. And like, if you attack these Jewish settlers or whatever, and you're really doing something for Islam, for your Palestinian brothers, and you'll be rewarded in heaven. So there's a lot of reason for Palestinian people to think Hamas is at their defense, when in reality, Hamas has probably caused a majority of the problems that lead Israel to attacking Palestine in every situation like that.
No, I agree with you. I mean, to me, this is kind of like a religious war mixed with geopolitical consequences. I mean, due to drawing maps. I mean, we've seen this in Africa all the time, where all the different African nations were kind of drawn up just by like some magic pen.
Yeah.
And caused so much conflict. And I think that the Israel and Palestine conflict is just that. I mean, we also, we understand that Israel really is surrounded by enemies. I mean, the reality is they have two sets of different religious beliefs. Them, Hamas being in the south, and then you have Hezbollah.
Oh, you're talking about, yeah, I see. I was talking about the other political organization in Palestine, which is Fatah.
Yeah.
And they're like a progressive form of Islam. They're secular. They believe in like a democratic socialism, like a social democracy. They ran Palestine for a while, and then they were completely overtaken by Hamas. And there hasn't really been any Palestinian governance since the last election, which was 2006.
Yeah, and that's kind of what the problem is. I mean, right now, I just feel, two-state solution is always going to be the best solution because, honestly, there are two different states. They have two, culturally and ideology, they're two different countries.
Yeah.
So the two different states is definitely going to be the way to go.
I mean, ideally, a one state that was secular, without where both religions could coexist and they could both share their ethnic homeland or whatever. That would be ideal, but there's just too much history and animosity for them to realistically, like there would still be a lot of conflict between the one state if it existed. There would be a lot of political infighting, stuff like that. So
No, I agree. I mean,
the solution.
one state's always a good solution, but it's almost like, I think you guys see me tweet this recently. It was the Haiti and Dominican Republic.
Yeah.
It's kind of two different countries on one island. Kind of similar to what's happening in Israel and Palestine. When you look at that country, and you can see that culturally, we're just different nations. Dominicans are European, and European in mindset, and they have a gravity towards not being, very Afrocentric in their ideology, their elite ideology, but Haiti is tend to be pro-African, in their ideology, and you can see the two different countries. See, those two countries mixing together would be like hot oil and water because they just have two different ideology.
Mm-hmm.
So this is why kind of saying with Israel, it's just their religion, it's the Torah and what they believe. It's kind of polar opposite to what Muslims believe.
Yeah.
Even though the Muslims break into Sunni and Shiite, the reality is that there's still ideology from outside of the fact they're monotheist religion.
Yeah.
They really are different ideology. They believe in, completely different things. I mean, and culturally, yeah, they should definitely be separated but equal. But it takes a lot of maturity and a lot of forgiveness and a lot of compassion on both sides to realize that, this is our land and we're technically brothers, and work together. And then our religious differences, which keeps us apart, should be ignored. That takes just a level of maturity. I mean, when you look at somewhere in like America, we frown upon religious movements trying to sway into our politics.
Yeah.
Even though we have a lot of Republicans who likes to do that with invoking Christianity into a lot of their policies.
And Christian nationalism.
Yeah, Christian nationalism and their policies, the fundamentals of this country, it's always going to be based on secular reasoning. True. I mean, that's how the country was founded. So we have that as an adult mindset where we're like, look, you can believe what you want to believe, but that doesn't affect our governing and our prosperity as a country. And I think what happens in this movement is, yes, let's just face it, we can't keep ignoring it. Israel did take the land of Palestine, the Palestinian people. That's a fact. We cannot. Now,
and at this point, though, it would be just as abhorrent for us to uplift Israelis out of their homes. They've been in this land for, 80 years now or something like that?
Well, more if you count biblical times. I mean,
yeah, but that was like
ancient time.
Yeah, it was like a millennia ago. That's the thing. But like that's the same thing with like the Native Americans. It's not like we're going to kick Americans off our homes now just because of their former claim to the land. Like wrongs were done, but it's the solution is you guys have to coexist now. But the problem is with Israel keeps expanding, and they're doing so because they have a substantially larger military, and they have that mindset of the Zionist mindset, which is like they essentially also want to create an ethno-state. And they want to have an Israeli-dominated. They don't want Palestine to exist, and Palestinians don't really want Israel to exist. And that's the problem with the two-state solution is kind of both sides, the leading group of both sides don't want the other party to exist.
And I can understand that. I mean, from both sides, why they may have that strong feeling. But the reality is their solutions are not working.
No.
And they're asking for, and let's just be honest, they're asking for both sides to annihilate each other.
Yeah.
Because Israel, as powerful as the military is, they're not going to be able to fight a three-face war. And from Jordan, from Hezbollah to
that's true.
Hamas, it's like we're backed by Saudi Arabia and Iran.
Although they are a nuclear-armed country, and they do have the backing of like a lot of European countries.
Yeah, but they're not going to blow themselves up.
Yeah, we don't want to get to that point. So
Yeah,
instead of having all-out war, which they've just been slowly one by one taking over parts of Palestine. Like Gaza has just been there since the conflict. I think it ended in 2009. They've just been occupying Gaza. It's kind of a consensus amongst at least Democrats that Gaza is basically an open air prison. That is where it is where Hamas resides, and like there is millions of people that live within there that are not part of Hamas, but Israel, their military occupy. It's actually the longest current military occupation in the world. And
well, which I get. I mean, let's face it.
which, yeah,
Hamas
of course,
does.
if Hamas has
Yeah,
genocidal opinions towards Israel, then you're
yeah,
like, well, I would like to contain that. But at the same time, Israel, if you live in Palestine or if you live in the Gaza Strip, you are just, you're a Palestinian people, and you have a foreign military roaming your streets, arresting you if you give them the wrong look. They control your water. They control your electricity. Somebody in Palestine decides to do something stupid and throw a bomb over into Israel's side, and then they blow up 10 times as many Palestinians. So it's like, from their perspective, they're the resistance, and they're trying to push back against a military empire, essentially. And in the West Bank, they had like the entire West Bank was controlled by Palestine. And then over the years, the Israelis have kind of supported settlers coming into the Palestinian territory so they could slowly take back Israel. And they basically, with the support of the Israeli government, they have ethnic Jewish people that are American citizens, like people from all around the world, that they'll come to Israel with the support of the Israeli government. They will they'll walk by a Palestinian home and say, I'd like to live there. And then with the support of troops, police, people back them up. They go into the Palestinian home. They kick out Palestinian families. And then that's now an Israeli home. That's what's been happening for decades.
I mean, I've known it on that level. I mean, you know more than I would on that one. But if that is the case, if that's the case, then that's wrong.
That's absolutely wrong.
Yeah, because we have to understand that human beings have a sense of dignity, of who they are. And if you're going to rob them of that sense of dignity because you believe that you're entitled to, majority of the land, then that's wrong. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm not going to sit there and say Israel doesn't have titles to the land. They do, just like the Palestinians do.
Yeah.
But the reality is you have to understand what's the greater good for the people and the population. Because the reality is you shouldn't be judged. I mean, in Lebanon, they have Muslims, Christians, Sunnis, Shiites. They all live under one government. And most Arab countries nowadays, presently, have some kind of Christian.
I would say most most Muslim countries are, if they're a Muslim country, for the most part, they're like 95% Muslim because they're Sharia.
Yeah, no, I agree.
There's more secular Muslim countries like Turkey, which they have their problems as well. But there are some countries that have progressed. But Islam is in a much farther form of they haven't progressed in the way that Christianity or Judaism has. And they're a little bit farther behind. At one point, even Iran was one of the most progressive Islamic countries in the world, and women could walk around without the hijab. There's a lot more secularism. And then a new administration came into power, and now they're one of the most radical Islam, like Republicans across the board are trying to bomb. They're trying to. I just realized we don't. Never mind. I just got distracted by something.
No, it's fine.
Oh yeah. It's the same thing with Palestine. Palestine was once a more secular government that Fatah is a two-state solution. Like when they controlled things weren't perfect, but at least it wasn't a literal terrorist organization that wanted to genocide Israeli people.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the solution is secularism.
Well,
Not that
I agree, because here's the thing: what happens with oppressed people? They usually rebel,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
and eventually that rebellion grows bigger and goes bigger, gets stronger, and then eventually it collapses.
Yeah.
And that's just the human nature of things. So it's like I can understand Israel wants, to reassert themselves as that's our land.
Yeah.
I get, but at the same time, not understanding that there's another ethnic group of people who also has claims to the land,
Mm-hmm.
and not honoring their voices is a clear mistake by Israel, because once again, like I say, Israel is surrounded by Muslims. It's like
Yeah.
it's not even
It'd be a lot
close.
easier to support Israel if they didn't constantly conflate the Palestinian cause with just Hamas. And and you can see this going on along in the media right now, and it's very dangerous because they're just people will wave a Palestinian flag and they think that you're supporting terrorism or something like that. When
Yes.
it's clearly we're talking about the fact that everybody freaked out for very, very normal reasons about Hamas killing hundreds of innocent people at this musical festival. But nobody's
Yeah.
talked about the fact that since that's happened, Israel has bombed the shit out of Gaza and killed hundreds of children, innocent,
Yeah. It's
and
the
nobody.
numbers are staggering.
People act like it's justified. Palestine has almost a 50% unemployment rate. They have almost half the country is under the age of 18. Like they are in turmoil. They're not a country that you really need to I don't know, fear them overtaking Israel or anything like that. Like Israel's like 20 times more powerful of a military. Literally
Yeah.
the terrorist attack was them flying over in hang gliders. They don't even fucking airplanes. They have hang gliders and they're dropping bombs. Like
Hmm.
they are at the very lowest part of resistance. Like they're doing the absolute most they can with they have no military. They're just not grassroots. What's it called?
Militias.
Guerrilla forces, guerrilla
Yeah.
fighting.
Guerrilla militias. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
And
Israel has deserves the same amount of fear of Palestine as Palestinians do of Israel. Because if they wanted to, if Netanyahu was 10% more evil, which he's a terrible, horrible leader, if he was slightly more evil, he could decimate all of Palestine in a month. They could bomb
yeah.
the entire country. They could completely do a genocide if they wanted to.
Yeah.
Palestinians could never get close to that kind of danger towards it.
Records. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
that's kind of what I'm saying. If I don't think Israelis, I don't think Israelites are in this idea of we have to completely get rid of the Palestinian people. I don't think that's the
yeah,
mindset at all.
most
I
of
think yeah,
yeah.
go ahead.
I said most of them at least.
No, I think what's happening in Israel is just they're growing as a population, and they're expanding,
Mm-hmm.
and they're not respecting the territorial boundaries of
Mm-hmm.
the Palestinian people. And I think that can be an easy fix if you just give them a piece of the land and say, well, this is your territory. This
Yeah.
belongs to you, which was the whole idea in the first place.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's why I think that if it's the best interest of all parties, and obviously this is not going to happen now because of the amount of tension and, you know, clearly the amount of anger.
Palestinian cause in the meantime is dead. The
Yeah,
way
that's yeah, Hamas.
overnight
Yeah,
we were
Hamas.
acting like they are the entire state is ISIS, and now
The problem is
Americans would totally support completely decimating Gaza. And they
well, the
don't realize
problem
that.
is
Yeah.
the Palestinians elected this Hamas.
In
Well, they didn't elect them.
2006,
I'm sorry, they didn't really.
when the last election was,
Yeah, yeah,
16 years ago.
I agree. But they became just because it became the government. What's what I'm looking for? Just because they became an authoritarian government, they
Well,
did. They
kinda.
were elected eventually.
They elected genocidal people, but they don't really administer the state at all. In fact, the West Bank is mostly administered by Fatah, and there is Hamas in there too, but for the most part, Hamas administers not really the Gaza Strip. Gaza Strip's administered by Israel. They're it's like a cartel essentially. They're not really a government, but they are kind of the leaders in the area.
Yeah.
So, to call it a democratic, like this,
So they have no elected official at all.
I think
representing them in the Israel parliament.
I think they do, but they don't really have power. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of more ceremonial at this point because they don't have. It's not like they have much of a GDP. They don't have trading partners. They're just like a.
Well, they're not a country. I'm not expecting that.
They kind of are. They're recognized by a lot of other countries as a country. It's at least
but that's Palestine that's recognized, not the Hamas region.
Oh yes, my bad. Of course, yeah.
Yeah. Palestine is recognized as a country, but that one region in the Gaza Strip where Hamas is strongholded, I don't think they're essentially under the Palestine name per se for country purposes. But yeah, I think I would agree with you, man. I know it's not going to happen right now, obviously with the emotions being so high.
Yeah.
But I just think that ultimately both sides, either by force or any other way, needs to come to a conclusion like, okay, we're not going to go in this region. This belongs to you. We'll recognize you as a country, but you stay over there.
They need to stop settling, they need to stop settling the West Bank. That's ultimately what happened. And it keeps shrinking. And it used to be a full square, and now it's just like ... of Palestinian territory because it's just been slowly taking over the land. And I don't know if the solution is to have the Israelis leave that area, or at least just not continue to grow. Because at this point, it's if you look at the maps of what Palestine looked like in the 60s, what it looked like in the 40s, and what it looks like now, it's pretty clear what's been happening.
Yeah, it definitely is very clear. And I think Israel, I don't think their intention was for them to do that. I just think
Netanyahu, he has been the prime minister on and off since like the 90s, and he is about as close to a fascist as you can get. He is farther right than Donald Trump. He's more authoritarian than Donald Trump. He is a horrible leader, and he just keeps getting reelected. He's been prime minister for like 16 years or something like that. And he is the one that's been orchestrating this because he's a Zionist and he thinks that all of Israel should belong to the Jewish people and not the Palestinians. So he's very militaristic.
Wasn't there like someone elected recently?
It wasn't all the way through. No, he got reelected again. But he'll be elected and then he'll be not prime minister. It's kind of like Putin. Putin has not been the president of Russia all the way through because they have certain term limits. But then they just had some other guy was the president for 4 years while Putin was went from president to prime minister, but was really he was like a shadow puppet of that government. So Putin's been in charge the whole time, but he hasn't been the president the whole time. It's kind of the same thing with Netanyahu. It's a democratic country, but he just keeps getting the power, and he's very authoritarian.
Yeah, I just got breaking news though on my app. CNBC just said Israel and Hamas war live update. Israel calls for evacuation of 1.1 million Palestinians in North Gaza.
So they're about to blow it to shit. But the thing is, they can't leave. I don't know
where they're gonna go.
I know they haven't allowed the Palestinians to go anywhere. They haven't allowed them to leave the Gaza Strip. So that's why it was ridiculous earlier when Netanyahu was like, "Oh, if you're in Palestine, you should get out now." It's like, how? You are surrounding the entire country with military.
Yeah, because I know. No, because I know America, we've been trying to work with Egypt to say, hey, can you take in these refugees? Because Israel's about to come in and,
blow it to shit.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And the reality, they said, no, we're not doing that. Just like, well, we're not going to do that because of their own reasoning. And so now that Israel's kind of issued a mandate for them to leave, where are they going to go? They can't go south. Israel's not going to allow them to go up north.
Yeah.
So they're literally stuck. 1 million people about to get onboarded by 300,000 troops.
Yeah. And I'll remind you again, almost half their population is under the age of 18. There's just so many children. There's old people. The very few amount of people that are like adult age. Not even all of them. They're not all part of Hamas. This is a very small percentage of people that are actually like responsible for the attacks that happen, and they're not really playing it intelligently. Israel, they're just saying, I don't care, we're just gonna blow you. So it's kind of
I just don't know what Hezbollah's gonna do. If they do that, I don't know if Saudi Arabia is gonna just allow them to attack Muslim people like that. Or Iran is going to allow them to do that, and that's my biggest fear.
Me too.
They overreach. The rest of these countries get upset if they slaughter too many Palestinian people, and they all turn against them.
And then because the United States is backing Israel, and then we're just going to bomb Iran, and then we're just going to be stuck in the Middle East for another 20 years.
No, I think we're going to back Israel. I don't know if we're going to commit troops to Israel.
Yeah.
I just don't see us doing that, committing troops. And then that's the next foreign policy question. If this were to escalate, would America put boots on the ground to protect Israel?
Yeah.
I don't see Biden doing it.
I don't think they will unless, like we said, Iran, Saudi Arabia, they all start to involve themselves. I can't imagine we stay out of the conflict if all these neighboring countries are threatening to bomb Israel after what they did to Palestine. So
I don't see us getting. I know the policy of this country has always been to defend Israel, and we will continue to defend Israel. I don't know if the Americans can stomach boots on the ground for a religious war.
Well, 2024, I can imagine Donald Trump won't hesitate.
He won't hesitate now. Nope. But generally, I just don't.
Yeah.
I don't know if the American people has ever. We've actually never gotten in a war like that.
Vietnam, kinda.
A religious war?
Oh, a religious war? No, not a religious war.
Yeah, because this is the
only religious war.
This would be considered a religious war. This is Jewish versus Islam.
Mm-hmm.
Jews versus, and so I don't know if Americans can stomach that as we're not getting involved in a religious war. Like, we will support them, we'll provide them money, weapons, and that support, but I don't see.
I think Ukraine could be setting a good precedent for how we deal with international conflict. You know what I mean? Americans don't want troops on the ground, but they do offer their support and stuff like that.
Yeah, financial support, of course. We're always going to support, just like we support Ukraine, we're going to support Israel. And we have a history of doing that. That's how, when Russia invaded Afghanistan, we did the same thing during Charlie Wilson War. And so we're known for doing that. And that's what the support we would provide. Like I said, boots on the ground, that takes the conversation to another level.
Yeah.
Because I do know, last time I checked, doesn't Saudi Arabia has nuclear weapons?
I don't think so.
I think so.
Israel does, Pakistan does, India does. I don't think Saudi Arabia does. Iran wants to, but I don't think Saudi Arabia does. Maybe I'm wrong.
Oh, you're right. It's non-nuclear.
Yeah.
No, Yeah, but Pakistan, which I haven't heard about in a while. What's going on in
Pakistan,
Pakistan?
India are still fighting over Kashmir.
Really?
Yep.
It's like, I feel like Pakistan has like not been in the news at all.
No, people don't talk about, and they don't talk. We don't talk about India very much, despite India being the largest democracy in the world, largest country in the world. Nobody talks about
Yeah.
India, but they're always doing stuff. India also is supporting Israel because Hindus hate Muslims. So also a religion.
Really?
Yep.
Explain that to me. I did not know that.
Well, I mean, it has a lot to do with Pakistan. And Pakistanis are Muslims, and especially Modi, the president of India or prime minister.
Yeah.
He is a Hindu nationalist, and
Uh-huh.
he really hates Muslims. They kicked out a bunch of Muslims or something out of the country. They really, it's a Kashmir thing. It's the same. It's the same territorial conflict as in Israel. It's over religion. It's over land. It's
Yeah.
just, I don't know why people can't just get along.
Why can't we just all get along?
Speaking of people getting along, the Republican
Oh,
Party can't seem to get
Republicans.
along with themselves.
Yeah, good old Republicans, man. I
They're
feel like
shooting
there
themselves
are.
in the foot for absolutely no reason. That's pretty funny.
Yeah, that's
I'll say so
funny.
myself.
Man, those guys are like the Saturday Night Live skits. Every week they give us something interesting and good to talk about.
Yeah. I mean, right now, I have absolutely no idea who's going to be the Speaker of the House. It
Oh
was
no,
pretty sure it was going to be Steve Scalise, and he was
he
leading,
bought out of that one.
but he just dropped out, and I don't really know why.
He
I
wasn't
think
gonna win. He wasn't gonna win the actual vote.
maybe that's probably why. But I
Yeah.
mean, I think we dodged a bullet on that one because I think his most famous quote is, "I'm David Duke without all the baggage," which
Yeah.
is quite a thing to call yourself as like a compliment. Like, guys, I'm David Duke. I mean, I'm not as racist, but I'm David Duke.
Yeah, he lost all the moderates right there. It was like,
Yeah.
no way, bro.
I've seen some moderates. I think Nancy Mace, she tweeted something about she supports Jim Jordan because of she didn't want to caucus with somebody that said that. And Jim Jordan's just a Tea Party conservative. He's also
Yeah.
for like he used to be like a high school wrestler, and there was some other coach or something that was molesting students, and he covered up for him. He's kind of like Joe Paterno in that situation.
Oh shit.
And I don't think that we need another Speaker of the House that is tied to pedophilia. If you remember who preceded Nancy Pelosi, it was, oh man, why am I forgetting his name? Doug Hastert or something like that.
I
Yeah,
totally forgot about that guy.
I don't think it's Doug, something Hastert. Yeah, he's an actual pedophile. He's molested tons of people. He was the Speaker of the House during the Bush administration. Yet the Republicans call Democrats the pedophiles and groomers. Yet they
Yeah.
elected
And they're the
anyway.
creep ones.
With
Yeah, I just don't see him, man. I just don't see what the Republicans are gonna do because I don't think Jim Jordan will get enough votes either because he is too. And I don't see. I think they're just gonna have to reelect McCarthy.
McCarthy's he's withdrew himself from consideration. I think he might
I know.
be quitting Congress.
I think he's gonna go put his head back into it because there's no
Maybe.
way he's the only one that can get those votes. And
I don't know if that's
unfortunately,
true.
no, there's no one else who has the name ID.
I mean, it's not name ID because they're in the House of Representatives. They all know their other congressmen, but it's more about who has the clout. You
Who
know what
has
I
the
mean?
connections?
Yeah, the
So
connections.
like
Right now, with those three excluded, I don't even know who's up for consideration.
because once again, who has the name ID and the connections to get 200 and was it 35 votes, something like that? That's needed.
Yeah.
It's like, how are you gonna do that? Like, it's almost to the point where it's like, who are you gonna get? Like, like Nancy Pelosi may have that kind of connection, but she's for the other party.
Well, right now it would be Hakeem Jeffries. He's the Democratic Majority Leader. So
but he can't even get 235 votes himself.
No, he's at 212 right now. So
yeah, there's no one has that kind of clout right now, like you were saying.
Yeah.
To do that, like they just don't.
They're gonna have to do another 15 rounds until they finally pick somebody.
It's embarrassing, man, and I guarantee they're going home for the week too.
Yeah.
So they're probably not going to vote again until like late October, November for speaker. So that means literally they get paid $180,000 to do absolutely nothing.
And the difference between the Democrats and the Republicans is when Democrats fight over the speaker, it's between progressives and centrists. When Republicans fight over the speakership,
it's everybody.
They're literally exactly the same. I mean, McCarthy, and he's not a moderate at all. He's just not part of the Tea Party movement, as Jim Jordan. But he's definitely not a moderate. But they just don't have any really ideological difference. It's more like maybe you'll be strategically pragmatic or non-pragmatic with your Trump conservatism, but today there's no real difference between any of them. So it's like, why can't you just pick somebody and move forward? It's because they like stagnancy. They like nothing passing through Congress, especially with the fact that they can't get anything done in the Senate anyways. So it's like we might as well just cause drama and infighting just to waste time until the 2024 election.
Yeah, which is stupid because that's going to make them look bad in the 2024 election. It's like, hey, we're going to elect them to lead us, so they can't even lead themselves. It's like, how do you not able to pick a person to represent the Speaker of the House? You can't even do that. And you expect the American people to trust you to run the country? Like, Republican politics will always work on a state level, but nationally, that party's done.
Yeah.
It's like on the state level, they have more power because essentially
they can control rural areas.
Exactly. But when you come nationally, you have to make a national voice for 300 million people. Their message is just stupid. It doesn't make any sense.
No.
It's like, well, yeah, we're going to be super conservative. Okay, cool. Let's be super conservative. But we don't even know how to be super conservative. Yeah. It's like, wait, you want us to be conservative and you don't know how to be conservative? Yeah.
I don't know how to really agree on implementation, stuff like that. And now now I don't know how you feel about the RFK, why he ran in the first place. Some people think he ran with insiders in the Democratic Party to help, sink Trump. Some people think that Trump convinced him to run to sink Biden's chances. And at this point, he is kind of a renegade, and he just decided to not run the Democratic Party because he had no shot. Now he's running as an independent, and I'm surprised how high he's doing in polls. There's 2 polls I've seen so far
I'm not actually surprised.
I am and I'm not.
Okay, explain.
Because it's all right. Well, first of all, he doesn't really stand for anything, but Americans really, really want an independent, or at least somebody that's not a Republican or a Democrat, and he is very good at actually positioning himself not as a centrist necessarily, but as a centrist between the 2 parties, which would make him kind of center-right leaning. Like he's like really old school. Like my dad said he would consider voting for him. My dad's a hardline Trumper. And I've seen him poll between 16 and 19%, which is very
not bad.
And
it's not bad.
I think maybe he can get like 10% max. But still, it does push Biden a little bit higher because there's a little bit more independents tend to vote for Republicans at the end of the day. They tend to be like loosely Republican affiliated. So these independents that don't like Trump but would probably have ended up pulling the trigger for him at the end of the day, now they're like, well, I kind of like this guy. He's not with the Fauci people and he's anti-vax, so he doesn't want us to get the jab. But he's also like, he'll speak loosely about corruption and corporations controlling things and about environmentalism, and he's not super religious or anti-gay enough to be alienating. So I don't know. He's just kind of wacko. But like, from if you don't know him very well, he's a Kennedy, and he sounds like a unifier. So I can understand.
Sounds like a Kennedy.
Yeah,
It sounds like a Kennedy because most people say that Kennedy wouldn't even be a Democrat in this
which is
Democratic Party.
absolutely ridiculous.
What the guy says, but I'm just saying what the right thinks.
Yeah, I know. It's but I mean,
like,
the reason I think that was because it was really before the party switch. So there's a lot of ancestral Democrat. Well, I don't. They were conservatives that voted for Democrats until Lyndon Johnson election.
Yeah,
Where really they switched based on the issue of race in the civil rights movement. But before that, there was a lot of people a lot of Republicans today whose parents probably voted for Kennedy. You know what I mean? And they are conservatives, and they were Catholics or Christians. So he was kind of the last Democrat that was kind of supported by the South.
Exactly. He was the last Democrat. And I mean, that's why I think RFK may have a shot.
Not a shot at winning, but a shot at making waves.
I think he would. Honestly, I'm not gonna say he has a shot at winning. Depending on who he picks for his vice president, he might give Trump and Biden a run for their money, because I don't think
the best he can do is rock and roll.
Yeah, if it's him, he'll lose. He's not charismatic enough. But if he gets someone more charismatic than him,
he's gonna pick Tulsi Gabbard. I'm calling it.
So if he picks her, then he might win.
He's not gonna win, but he could get electoral votes.
I think he'll win. I think that here's my theory. I think a lot of people are underestimating both sides' hatred for the partisan politics.
Yeah,
and I think they're underestimating that by a lot. I think the reality is progressives are never happy with President Joe Biden. President Joe Biden
won't vote for Kennedy.
Well, I'm just saying they're not happy.
Yeah.
They're going to vote for Biden. But then a lot of centrists don't like Biden will probably go for Kennedy. And a lot of centrists who don't like Trump will probably vote for Kennedy. And Trump's going to have his 30%.
Yeah.
That's just what Trump's going to have. 35%. No one's going to shake that 35% from him. And Biden should win because he will have more. He'll have the progressive bloc and some of the centrist bloc.
Yeah.
And he should win based on that.
I think he will.
But I think that Kennedy can probably give him a run for his money at 25-30.
I think Tulsi agree with that.
But I think Tulsi will give him the edge that she would finally look like a young new leadership coming in. Because that's the biggest issue.
They're both really good rhetoricians. They're really good at the populist rhetoric and sounding like they're middle of the way. They're anti-establishment. They care about liberals and conservatives alike. And I could see them doing a really good job against people who ran in the last election. People are kind of sick of Trump and Biden. I could see a lot of people who, especially the non-politically educated, who would support a Kennedy.
Because it would be considered a unity ticket, essentially.
Well, kind of. They're both technically came from the Democratic side, but they both
that's true.
But they both.
I think RFK is more Republican. I don't think he's really a Democrat.
He is he is basically a Republican, like a really moderate Republican. But Kennedy, and you're not going to challenge Trump in the Republican primaries, so he ran as a Democrat. But
exactly.
They, in both Kennedy and Gabbard, have spent most of their time as the stand-in Democrat on Fox News. So a lot of Republicans see it as a unity ticket, you know what I mean? Because they are the ones that have been reaching out to the conservatives.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised if they knew this from the start, if Kennedy had always planned on running as an independent with Gabbard or something, and he just ran in the primary just to gain a little bit of support and name recognition, stuff like that. I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't plan this the whole time. Yeah,
it sounds like he planned it the whole time.
Yeah.
Because he was like, as soon as the filing deadline came in place, I'm going to run as independent. Thanks.
Yeah.
The Democratic primary.
Fundamentally, I don't see him as being liberal or progressive enough to take very many votes away from Biden. Biden will win this, but I could see Kennedy running as an independent, getting on the ballot in most states, and doing the Ross Perot strategy. After he wins, maybe in a couple electoral votes or something, or maybe he just gets a really high popular vote. I could see him forming a third party. Like that's where the No Labels party comes into play, or something like that.
Well, yeah, if that's the case, if that's the play, he's gonna have to probably get away the No Labels party.
Yeah.
What's that party? The Ford party, and then combine it together to make one party.
Yeah, I agree.
But then they need a platform, because Americans are never going to vote for we're just not the other guys.
I think that's their best shot, actually. Low key.
that never works.
Well, it kind of works. They need some vague policy ideas. I agree, but they kind of worked in France, and it kind of works in Italy. Italy has the five-star movement. They're just basically centrist populist movement, and they have like ideological populism across the board, where they're like kind of anti-immigration, but like a little bit, but not to a crazy amount. They're kind of worker friendly, but they're kind of supportive of government intervention in the economy, and like all these stuff that like a majority of people would probably support. So they're kind of a vague hosh-posh of ideology. And that's kind of the same thing with Macron, how he got elected, although he's basically running as like a American neoliberal. Like,
yeah, Macron looks right now, man. He looks terrible in Africa. Man, Africans like really hate him.
Yeah,
it's like a pure patch of hate for him, and I'm like,
yeah,
like,
I don't like him either.
I mean, I don't really have anything to say about him. I don't think he's that significant. I don't know if you're crying about France in 2024. It's like France hasn't been relevant since 1800s or 1700s.
Well, at least he's better than Marine Le Pen, who is like as close to a neo-fascist as you could get in public office. Like, and her father was an open, like a literal like neo-Nazi, and he was like, yeah, I think he ran in early 2000s or something like that. And that election, I can't remember if it was the Socialist Party who defeated, but they won with like 87% against Macron's party. It's like
but French are known for
not
one
Macron,
thing.
Le Pen.
Le Pen. The French are known for one thing. They hate the status quo.
And
the French hate status quo stuff. Like, they're worse than Americans when it comes to that. Like, Americans hate like political dynasty families.
Yeah.
The French hate it even more. We love Kennedys. But for the most part, if you're not a Kennedy or a Bush or, Clinton. We hate or Clinton, we really hate political families in America. And so
we hate it on paper.
We hate it on paper.
Yeah.
The French hate it worse than us. Like, if you're like in France for way too long, they just want to throw you out just because they don't like seeing your face after a while. It's like, dude, you're out of here. We can't stand you. But like I said, the French politically hasn't been relevant since the 1800s, 1700s. I mean, like,
or at least since the World War II kind of situation. Like, they weren't like a powerful dynasty or whatever. But I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what you mean by they weren't relevant.
Are you telling me that when Germany took them over in like a week or two, that people lost a lot of respect for the French at that point?
I mean, they probably did. I just didn't know what you meant by relevant necessarily, because I mean, they weren't even a powerful. Well, they also were an empire until they like occupied Vietnam and stuff like that, and that was how the Vietnam. That's how the Vietnam War happened, was them trying to overthrow the French colonizers, stuff like that. So, but France has not been that powerful or dominant since about as long as you said. I agree.
Yeah, it's just a lot of it is just tradition, especially in a lot of these countries that had old French imperialist ideologies.
Like,
and a lot of it's based, like Haiti is one of them. A lot of West African countries,
French Guiana,
like Suriname and
Yeah.
it's just all French tradition.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, in terms of policy and actually making a major world economic difference,
Yeah.
the French hasn't done anything in
Yeah.
the last 200 years. It's just more. It's more like the British. Like the British are so in love with their monarch. You're like
Mm-hmm.
they really technically have no power whatsoever politically, but people like to see them.
Yeah.
People like seeing the queen. They like seeing the prince. Like, oh, they look cute in their little royal outfits, and people love it.
And
And
like
that's what.
technically, the king is technically the king of Australia and of Canada and New Zealand and all that stuff, but like he doesn't do anything.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like it's all tradition. It's like you don't really have power. It's like the
Yeah.
French. You don't really have power. It's tradition.
Mm-hmm.
And it's But yeah, now the French likes to go around and make it seem like, oh, we're trying to create world stability, and it's like the reality is no, you're just stuck in this imperialist mindset. You think you're the same France from 1700, and
Yeah.
it's like like world-wise, you're very insignificant.
Very
Um,
significant.
yeah, I mean the two superpowers that let's goes without saying the two superpowers right now is China and America.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have allegiance for one or the other.
Pretty
If
much.
seriously, like in nowadays,
Yeah, I mean,
and
China and Russia are throwing their support behind Palestine pretty much for the sole reason that the United States is supporting
it's on the other side.
There's
Yeah,
no other reason.
it's like Russia really cares about the Sunni and the Shiites and what they
Not
really should do. No, come on.
they're not really supportive of Muslims. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like
They're also Christian nationalists.
no, they're the biggest Eastern Orthodox religion is in
Yeah,
Russia. It's like they don't care about Muslim issues. The
no,
reality is, it
they care
just
about anti-American issues.
exactly, and that's what that is. And it's like, but I mean, I get it. You're losing a war in Ukraine. You'll say whatever,
Yeah.
because it's already embarrassing enough that you can't beat Ukraine, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like, so I understand that, but at the same time, it's like let's not make it seem like you're all about pro Sunni Shiite militia. It's like, no, you're not. You're just about yourself. And speaking of that, since we're on the tangent about Russia, I don't think we ever talked about how um, what's that guy who was the general who kind of rebelled against Putin?
The Wagner Group,
The Wagner group, this
or I don't remember his name.
port something, but yeah, the general that was in charge of the Wagner group. Do you know
Yeah,
he killed them?
yeah. They shot down his plane.
Like I was so shocked when I heard that. I was like,
You were shocked
remember?
because
Yeah, I was like, okay, I wasn't shocked he killed him. I knew he was gonna kill him, but the way he killed him was like, this is like totally an HBO movie. The way
yeah,
how that went down, it's just like flying a plane and a bomb just bombs, and then he
it's
gets on
pretty
TV.
predictable.
Yeah,
What was that?
come on, did you really predict he would kill him with a bomb in a plane?
It sounds like Putin style. I mean, actually, I kind of would have guessed he'd like poison his bread or something like that. But yeah,
I was just like, man, is this like a movie or something?
pretty
Like I feel like I really watch an HBO movie where
yeah,
it's like this guy goes against the world leader, and the world leader turns around and just bombs his plane
yeah.
just randomly after saying he forgave him. It's like, what kind of mafia stuff is this? It's like you've been forgiven and then turn around and kills a man.
That's
But I'm gonna
exactly
say,
what it is.
hmm?
Putin is like literally a mob leader, just elevated to the position of
Yeah,
ultimate power. So
yeah. Well, and also power in Russia.
you could just
Like,
watch
man,
like The Sopranos and watch what they do, and then just like translate that to Russia and be like, that's what they're doing.
and they proved that everything just like that.
Exactly.
Man, it's insane. Like these last 3 weeks, man, has been crazy insane. And
Mhm.
for you guys don't know, I'm actually getting married soon, and that's why I kind of been the delay of the show for the last 2 weeks. But the amount of news that we've gotten in these last 2 weeks has been unsurmountable. Like
Yeah, I know.
I literally feel like, man, do we have the leaders for this kind of generation and this kind of because I'm a little worried about that.
We have the worst leaders possible right now.
It's like,
Although
man.
Biden's been the best Democratic leader we've had since LBJ.
Yeah.
So as
You
much
know why?
as
It's
go
because he's been there for so long. It's like you're
Probably.
not gonna trick him about like he knows how to deal with Russia. He knows how to deal with these things.
That's a good point,
Right?
actually, because
You know,
if you think about the other options, it's been Obama, who was a new senator. He didn't have
wasn't
a
that
lot of-
experienced.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And before that, you had Clinton, who was
New.
also a new figure in
New.
politics. And before that,
Mhm.
I think it was Jimmy Carter,
New.
also new figure in politics.
National.
Although
He was new
before that,
nationally. Yeah.
LBJ, former I think I don't know if he's a majority leader or Speaker of the House. He'd been
Yeah.
basically the highest, most powerful Democrat up to that point, anyways. And he
Yeah.
got shit done. He went straight into the offices of people whose votes he was trying to whip, and he got in their face. And you know what? They passed countless legislation with the supermajority. He whipped those votes, and they got Medicare, Medicaid passed. They got all these sort of social programs and expansion, and now we're kind of in the second LBJ era, where Biden's
Eh,
not even LBJ wasn't ultra progressive. He just got liberal policy.
Well, he knew the right liberals to have in his camp. I think Herbert Hoover.
Hoover. Hoover was the. Hoover is
I'm missing his name. What's his name?
I don't
It's
know.
not Herbert.
No, Hoover was the Great Depression dude.
No, you're thinking of someone else.
No, Herbert Hoover. Hoover's the Great Depression dude.
Oh, he was. I'm sorry. What am I thinking of? You're right. Jesus, what's his name? He eventually became, I think, president. It wouldn't take me long.
I think of like Walter Mondale or like George McGovern.
President United States. No, he had a progressive on his side that eventually helped him whip a lot of those votes on the progressive side. Let me see if I can pop him up. Maybe
Was it Bobby Kennedy?
Maybe getting my facts wrong here.
Maybe.
Hold on. I know LBJ had a progressive on his side. I just can't think of his name.
I mean, he had MLK.
Well, come on. I'm talking about political.
MLK is political. MLK was an avowed Democratic.
He was actually a Republican.
No, he was not. MLK was a Democratic socialist.
Martin Luther King?
Google it right now. He's a Democratic socialist. He was Bernie Sanders before Bernie Sanders.
I will. Hubert Humphrey was his vice president.
Oh.
Jesus, that's what I was thinking of.
Humphrey. Yeah.
Yes.
In the 70s.
Yes, and he was the progressive that helped him pass.
Actually, no, he ran 68 against Nixon, I think.
Yeah, he was the one who helped get. He was the one that helped him get the progressive bloc to get a lot of stuff passed. So
Humphrey was solid.
He was solid as a vice president. I don't know why I thought. I thought he was a president. I'm like, I knew he was a president.
I probably would have remembered it, but yeah. No, I kind of forgot about him. I was actually, while you were saying, I was trying to think of who LBJ's VP was, because it was blanking for me, but that makes a lot of sense now.
Yeah, so Hubert Humphrey helped him pass a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Not Herbert Hoover, Hubert Humphrey.
Yeah, sorry, the HH got me.
They're very, very similar names.
Yeah, they got me. HH.
MLK was a Democratic socialist.
Oh, okay. We should pull this up. It's good. I think he was.
I'm pulling it up.
MLK, Democratic.
He was very.
Okay, I have someone say he's a black socialist. I have some people say he was a democratic socialist.
Not much difference there.
I'm trying to figure out what would make him a socialist, though.
I don't know what you mean by that. Well, he was very much like a Gandhi.
No, I know he was pro civil rights, but I don't know if that makes him.
But Gandhi's also. He was just ahead of his times. Cared about worker solidation and against worker exploitation, stuff like that. He wasn't like a Marxist-Leninist either. He was actually a democratic socialist, like super based.
We're gonna have to do that research. We're gonna have to dedicate an episode to some foreign leaders. I mean, to our past civil rights leaders and activists. Because there's actually a couple movements I want to talk about. I feel like I want to go down to like talk about Susan B. Anthony, Martin Luther King, some of these influential leaders that make up the ideas of our leaders now, to figure out some of their policies and see how much has changed from what they used to believe into what we have our current system now. You know, be a good show.
Real quick, we'll just look at this. You can see my screen, right?
Yeah, I can see your screen.
So yeah, I don't think the Republican is the party of the Almighty God, nor is the Democratic Party. They both have weaknesses. It's probably why Republicans say like, he wasn't a Democrat. But when it gets down to it, he he liked Kennedy. Kennedy would make the best president. He didn't come out with an endorsement. Blah 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 blah. He hated Barry Goldwater because he was far right. He's basically a libertarian that was also like a military interventionist. So think of like Ron Paul mixed with like George W. Bush. That was
King. That was a very interesting mix.
He supported the ideals of democratic socialism, but it was during the Red Scare era, so he didn't talk about it because it was associated with communism.
That's what I thought. Yeah, he was in. But a lot of blacks at the time were leaning towards socialism because that gave them the most opportunity to come up.
Well, yeah, they were the underclass that was being exploited by the capitalists, and they didn't have any sort of wealth, and it didn't have any sort of way to pull themselves up by the bootstraps. So
so a lot of civil rights leaders were socialists in that mindset of just equal. Everyone should be treated the same, So they all had that common understanding. So I would give you that in terms of that. A lot of Democrat leaders were like that.
And then you'll see Republican boomer tweets that say like, MLK would have been a Republican today. He says, don't judge a person by the content of his character, or by his color of his skin, but by the content of his character. See, he's a Republican because of human support.
No, I would say he's a Republican because he was a pastor by nature, and he would be of a lot of traditional viewpoints.
Well, you are also thinking of today's Democratic Party. Well, you could not run as, basically until today, you cannot run as a Christian or as not a Christian in the Democratic Party either, because the Democratic Party has also been a historically Christian party.
I agree, yeah. But recently has moved away from, which is not a bad thing, but it's kind of moved away to just more of a
secularism.
It's not secularism per se, because there's a lot of Democrats who are Christian.
Well, secularism doesn't mean anti-religion. Secularism means to allow, we don't pick a religion. We allow.
Okay. Oh yeah.
Yep.
So if that's the definition, then we become more of that. Secular.
But I mean, Democrats have also relied on the black vote, and black conservatives vote for Democrats, and they're all very religious, and most white Democrats would also be Christians as well, but so they've had to rely on the Christian base as well. So it would make sense that Democrats would, or the African Americans would all vote for Democrats post the 60s. Before that, it is a wild card. They could vote for Eisenhower, especially because in the 50s, Eisenhower was very liberal Republican, but also Adlai Stevenson was still catering to the Southern Dixiecrats, and he literally had his vice presidential candidate was a Dixiecrat. So it would make a lot of sense why a lot of black people vote for Republicans in the 50s. Then about the 60s, when it kind of switched ultimately on the issue of the civil rights movement, and that ultimately was the party switch, even though it wasn't a full-on switch, because they're very different than what the parties we have today is. They have a liberal Republican coalition, and they had a conservative Democrat coalition. It was kind of like 4 parties. It was more like a 4-party system that operated 2 parties essentially. So basically, the two sides, the liberal Republicans and the conservative Democrats, kind of switched sides. So the very centrist people kind of switched. It wasn't a full-on party switch. It was just sort of like, they moved along the margins finally to a point. The South was dominated by Republicans instead of Democrats.
Mm-hmm.
So that's that.
Very, very true. That's our history.
Very historical episode we have today. We're talking about a lot of history.
Yeah, and guys, we have more episodes, especially diving deeper. The war just started. I think we're in day 6 of the Israel-Palestine conflict and war. We still don't have a Speaker of the House, so stay tuned for more topics on that. And we still have to figure out what RFK is going to do.
Yeah. We'll see. I think he might actually make the debates. We'll see.
Yeah, so we're going to be staying on.
I was going to say, it depends on how many ballots you get on.
Yeah, so we'll see how many ballots you can jump on. But we have, like I said, these 3 topics and more topics. Election cycles gearing up full. We didn't really talk about the debate because we could talk about it, but they didn't really say anything different.
A lot of people were saying it was the worst debate they've ever seen in their entire life. So it was kind of.
Yeah,
Nikki Haley is kind of the second Republican, though, now, would you say? At least she's at the exact same level as DeSantis.
Is she? Let me look at the Clip politics polls.
It's usually Trump at like 60%, and then Haley and DeSantis are both at about 13%, from what I've seen.
Yep, that's really good. Fox has it 59 Trump, 13 DeSantis, Haley 10, Ramaswamy 7, Pence 4, Christie 3, Scott's 1, Hutchinson's 1. Scott's going to drop out. Bergen's going to drop out.
Scott will endorse Haley. Ramaswamy will endorse Trump. And
then it will be DeSantis and Pence are going to drop out after Iowa.
I think so, yeah. They're going to have to do at least one caucus or primary. And then they'll be like, all right, I don't have a chance.
Yeah, they'll drop out if Trump slaughters them. And then
it's probably going to be Trump versus Haley, in my opinion. And I didn't think it would happen, and you said it from the start.
Well, I'm not Nostradamus yet.
Yeah.
We'll see who drops out. And then we will, like I said, I also said Christie was going to be there towards the end. And right now he hasn't gone up in the poll. So
he'll probably drop out, endorse Haley, and say something like, we need to unify against a coalition against Trump, yada, yada, yada. That'll probably. Will Hurd already dropped out. You guys probably didn't even know he was running, but he endorsed Nikki Haley.
Didn't move the needle much, but sure. I think if Christie drops out, Scott drops out, they go behind Haley, and Hutchinson will never vote for Trump, so they'll go behind Haley. That'll put Trump, DeSantis, and Haley. And Ramaswamy would endorse Trump.
Yeah.
DeSantis to drop out, and more like it'll be Haley versus Trump. But she'll lose to him.
She'll lose
to him because the reality is, if it's Trump and Haley, it's hard for you to say I should be my boss.
Yeah.
It's really hard to say that. It's like,
but I can see a lot of like neocon Nikki Haley supporters throwing their support against behind RFK Jr. I could see that happening.
I could see that happening too. Yeah, I just don't see as the race dwindles, the spotlight on Haley's going to grow.
Yeah.
And then when it grows, people are going to be like, why would we vote for you over Trump? Trump elected you.
Or I could see them, why would we vote for a guy under criminal indictment who just keeps causing all these problems when we could vote for Haley, who's consistently polling at like 6% more than Biden? Like, she would beat Biden. Nikki Haley 100% would beat Biden. But
that's interesting.
She has insurmountable odds to beat Trump. So,
but I have a theory that if Haley, it looks like she's going to win it, Biden will bow out.
Yeah, I think that too.
And I think he will give it not to Kamala, but I really have a sneaky suspicion that they're gonna run Gavin Newsom.
Well, yeah, at that point, like you had said, it probably would be past the primaries, and it would be a point where it's just straight into what's the word? Where they just what is it called? Where they actually do the votes, the nomination.
Yeah, the DNC when they do the convention.
The
And they
convention.
actually the convention when they do the actual awarding of electoral college.
Yeah.
Biden would just bow out and then give it
And then
to.
I think like 40% of them would vote for Kamala. And then I think like 60% would throw support behind like Gavin Newsom at the end of the day.
Yeah, and then Gavin and Nikki Haley would go toe to toe. And I don't
know what happened in that race.
I think I wouldn't know, but Gavin Newsom is really good. Like I watched him and the RNC debate.
Yeah.
Afterwards, I don't know if you've seen this on the news.
The which one?
So he was at the RNC debate in California.
RNC in California?
Republican debate. No, RDC. Well, okay, the Republican debate. The last one?
Oh, I see what you mean. So
that
he
was
did
in California.
Okay.
So he did the spin room at the end. And he was there and he like killed every single Republican that was just on that stage.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh yeah, they're terrible here, they're terrible here, they're terrible here, they're terrible here. Vote for Joe Biden. And
he's a good rhetorician. He's good charisma, and I don't like some of the things he does politically, and it really bothers me because I live in his state. But he does have what it takes. He got the juice. He could win. He could win 8 years. He could win 8 years for sure.
That's what I think. He has the juice, and if he has the juice, I can see them like, hey, if it's someone other than Trump, we need to go ahead and find a quick way to switch places here. Yeah. Biden needs to drop out to give us a realistic chance because I don't think Biden can beat, like you said, I don't think he can beat Haley.
Yeah,
because she's younger. She's younger.
Biden, I don't think Biden has the big enough ego like Trump where he wouldn't. The only reason Biden is running is because he thinks he has the best shot to beat Trump. I think he thinks it is like his moral duty to continue on the Biden administration because they have the incumbency bias and stuff like that. But when it really shows that he would not win, I don't think he would want to stay around. He doesn't want to ruin his own reputation, and he doesn't want the party to fall under Trumpism. So I think he would do the right thing.
Yeah, I think he would give it to Gavin. But we shall see. These next 3 months will be very interesting. Because the next debate, which we probably will talk about, because then at that point it would only be DeSantis, Haley, Ramaswamy, Pence, and Christie, which was that 5 people?
Mm-hmm.
More easy debate to digest.
Yeah, that's a lot better.
Yeah, because Haley has a lane, Ramaswamy has that Trump lane, DeSantis has a lane, Pence has a lane, and Christie has a lane. So they want to essentially be talking over each other.
I really do think Pence and Christie and Haley are basically the exact same lane, except Christie is more openly anti-Trump.
Exactly. So that's his lane, and he can't move from that lane.
Mm-hmm.
Like you got to stay in that lane, and when Trump falters in these subpoenas and these court hearings and that, here's my theory, and this is just a weird theory, but if this happens the way I think it's going to play out, and Trump's name starts to get saltied along the way with the information coming out from the court hearings.
Yeah, which will happen in January, right?
Yeah, and he starts to lose slippage in the polls. I think who's going to have a direct benefit of that is Christie, because he's going to be the only one who actually stood up to Trump.
Maybe.
And this is my theory.
I can see it happening.
I don't know if it's not going to carry. I don't know if it's going to carry him to win it, because that's a lot of ground to make up at 3%. It's like that's a lot of ground to make up. But I can see him taking bumps up. His best bet for him, I would just give up Iowa. Wouldn't even try in Iowa, and then try to win New Hampshire.
I think New Hampshire is Christie's best shot, but I don't think he really has what it takes, or he's popular enough amongst Republicans. I think in this situation that Trump leaves, they either say, all right, Trump is out. I either want somebody exactly like Trump, Ramaswamy, or I want somebody that can definitely win, Haley. So I think those are the only two people. I think maybe some would say DeSantis, but I think everybody knows at this point DeSantis is kind of cooked. So
yeah,
I don't see a route for anybody other than Haley or Ramaswamy, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. It's gonna be tough.
Yeah.
Outside those two, it's very tough. But we shall see. I mean, November, December, usually they're quiet, but right now the people are deciding because
we won't know till February. I don't think.
Well, a lot of we do know Scott's going to drop out. None of these people should go into if they have a real shot. If they're going to run again in 2024, 2028,
yeah,
none of them should go into any. If you're pulling this bad, your best bet is not to go into Iowa.
I agree with that.
Because if you bomb Iowa, it's like good luck running again in another 4 years.
I mean, that's what happened. That's why nobody thinks Harris will win, because we've seen her try.
We've seen you try, and if you bomb, it's almost like it's easy to bow out. Like people don't even know this. This is Biden's third time running for president.
Yeah,
but no one ever talked about the first two times because he bombed so bad, and it was just like he knew out the gate, I'm not gonna win, so he bowed out before any votes were tallied, and people tend to forget that.
Well, he never would have been president after running 2008, I believe, if it weren't for the fact that Obama picked him as VP. Like that, in most situations, you would have been screwed after losing again. But since he got elevated to VP, I think that's why he got chosen.
Yeah, hold on. Someone posted something. Stand with Ukraine. You missed the memo. You're supposed to stand with Israel now. They didn't update your programming. We stand with both. I don't know. Just I guess another troller saying we don't stand. We stand with Israel and we stand with Ukraine. Like I said, the problem with America, and thank you for posting Just a Man with Opinions. A lot of people don't understand. As being in America, we usually are the backbone of the world, especially when it comes to issues like these, where we have to provide support to countries who can't really support themselves. Like I said, Israel is facing a situation where there's 3 different states that could possibly attack it. So we stand with Israel. We just hope that Israel, it's open to.
We stand with the people of this country. We don't stand with the Netanyahu administration. The same way we would say I stand with America. We don't necessarily stand with the Trump administration or something.
Exactly.
So you just don't want violence on any side.
We don't, and we just want. Our position here is to talk about policies that can help both sides, because that's what we're here for, to talk about policies. Obviously, we don't have a viewpoint on religion and who should win or why one country is better than the other. We're focused on what's the common solution for all parties, and that's our platform, and that's where we focus on, just policy, social
progress
policies, progressive policies to help, So, I mean, that's our mission, and that's what we're going to continue to do on this platform. And just like we stand with Ukraine, we stand with Ukraine symbol on, because that's what we believe. We want to help, and be that platform for that. So,
with that said, we should probably
time off for today.
I feel like we keep almost ending it, then we're like, you know what? We didn't mention that. But
it's because we haven't. It's been 2 weeks. That's why, guys. It's been 2 weeks. But yeah, we'll end it today, and we'll be back next week, and then we will have another discussion of the current issues.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of things will be shaken up by that point. So
definitely.
All right. Well, thank you guys for having watched thus far. Make sure you subscribe to our channel. We're still trying to get those subs up. Hopefully it'll be a lot easier once we're a little bit more consistent, but it's fine. We just got to get some new guests coming. We've got some communications with potential guests that you would love to hear from. So stay tuned, and you can only know what we're doing next if you're subscribed. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Share it with your friends. And
do it now. This far. Yeah, do it now. Subscribe.
Do it now.
All right, guys. See ya.
All right, guys. We've had another week of Imagine More.